All right. Let's start. I'll introduce myself. I'm Alex Grandstaff. My pronouns are they, them. I am ASN's program manager. Eli, who are you? I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to catch you while you're
You're
drinking.
so fine. I thought your intro is gonna be a little bit longer. My name is Eli Boderdavid. I also use they them pronouns, and I'm the grassroots associate here at ASAN.
All right. And today, y'all are joining us for a walkthrough of the Teighlor McGee mini grants applications. What will happen is I'm going to share the screen starting first with the ASN homepage so you can navigate to where you can download the application. And then we're going to do a walkthrough where we'll talk about each of the questions and y'all will be able to ask us any questions that you have as we go through the application. So if we're talking about a question and you're not sure about it, please raise your hand or type in the chat any question that you have. And yeah, we want to set y'all up to have the easiest time possible applying for grants. We know this can be intimidating, but we're really excited to have you here. We're really excited to have folks interested. All right, and now begin the share screen process. All right. Can folks see my screen? Okay, perfect. So this is the ASN homepage. It is autisticadvocacy.org. And you can see right here, this is Teighlor's face, Teighlor McGee Grassroots mini grants. Please click this on our homepage. Then you can scroll down. You'll see information about who Teighlor McGee was, what a mini grant is, who this program is for, and then you have the 2 mini grants. And it'll show you affiliates in action. Our requirements for affiliates in action are in this column. Our requirements for the Self-Advocates Transforming Equitable Policy or STEP grant is in this column. And then when you scroll down to the bottom, you can see right here, you click these download buttons. I'm not going to do that because I've downloaded them several times onto my computer now. And I have them open in these neighboring tabs. I also want to highlight Eli has set aside time generously for folks who, as you go through this application process, if you get stuck at any point or you have questions or you're not sure about how to answer something, or if your answer is getting at what we want in terms of information, you can make an appointment with Eli for office hours by clicking this link here. So I'm going to go ahead and move to another tab. And let's start with STEP grant because we're right here. So we give a reminder up here at the top about how the STEP grant works. The STEP grant is only for people of color. And if you are an organization applying for the STEP grant, your leadership must be self-advocates of color, and at least 50% of your membership must be people of color. If you are an ASN affiliate interested in applying for the Affiliates in Action grant, we remind you to use that application instead. And once you finish this application, you'll be emailing it to Eli at their email right here. And now we get into the application itself. So the first part is we basically just need your information, the name of if you are a group applying, whichever individual is serving as the contact person for the application, you'll put your name right there under name of applicant. Whatever contact email you want to use, please put that here. Phone number. Also, if you we want to know whether you prefer to be contacted by phone or email. This is the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. We will not force anyone to have a phone call they don't wish to. Your address, and then also if you are 18 years or older, we need to know that. Whoever is applying for this grant, we want to remind you, the person applying for the grant does need to be over the age of 18. If you are a group applying and you have members who are under the age of 18, that is okay. But whoever is applying for the grant itself needs to be above the age of 18. And then we put here, are you applying by yourself or with collaborators? So what that means is if you were a group, you would say you're applying as a group. If you were applying, even if you were a group and you're applying as, say, a coalition, So say your organization B, but you are also working with organizations C and D on this project. You would list all three of your organizations, but you're the primary person, primary group of them. And you can see we kind of get into that more right here for groups applying. And again, if you're applying by yourself, don't worry about this section. It's not for you. This is where we get into, you'll put down the name of your representative. So the person filling out if that's different than the person filling out the application, please put that down, the preferred contact email, phone number, how you prefer to be contacted. What is your country and state? We are accepting folks outside of the United States for these grants, just so folks know. And again, is your group above the age of 18? And you can see, I know it sounds repetitive. That's why we tell you to skip this section if you're an individual, because we're asking again, is your group applying solo or are you applying with collaborators? We need your name of your group, how long it's been active, how many members your group has, how often your group meets. And also when we ask, what does a regular meeting look like for your group? We don't need you to be super detailed, but give us maybe a sentence or two about our group meets once a month virtually, and we talk about advocacy work and then have a social component afterwards, or whatever your group meetings might look like. If you have a website or social media pages, please give us a link to that. Please let us know what your group mission is. If your group does not have a written down mission, I would say just give us a sentence or two about what is the overall goal for your group. So if your group is focused on providing a space for self-advocates to learn new skills in the Bay Area, you can just write exactly what I just said. And put that down, and that works as a mission statement. And
Alex, there's a question.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any character restrictions on these group information? There is not, because when you download the application, it will download as a Word document or PDF out.
It should download as a Word document. Okay. If you, like me, do not have Word on your computer, you can put a Word document into Google Drive and open it as a Google document. It'll automatically turn itself into a Google Doc.
Right. And so there's no limit. There's it's not a box with a limit number of characters. You could literally write a page. I feel like that's a lot of labor on y'all's part. So when we're saying 1 to 2 sentences, mind that, just that you don't have to do a whole lot of work, but there isn't a character limit. You can be as detailed as you'd like.
Yes, correct. However much time it takes you to answer the question, but as Eli said, we don't want you to have to do extra work. So don't feel like you have to really give very long answers every time. So then when we get into the next question after the mission is, what activities has your group done to try and achieve this mission? So like I said, I gave the made up answer of a group that's doing self-advocacy work in the Bay Area in California. So they might say, we hold monthly training sessions so folks can learn self-advocacy skills to better advocate for themselves at work or with their housing or with support services. We do call sessions where we call our local representatives. Whatever work that you are doing that has to do with particularly advocacy work. And recently I had someone ask what we mean when we say advocacy work. And in that case, we are talking about work that supports self-advocates with disabilities and speaking out for their rights, getting their needs met, that sort of stuff. So that can include things like education. That can include things like creating easy read materials that help people know important information about their health, their rights at work, their rights to transportation, those kind of things. So if you can give us examples of what activities your group does towards your mission, we would love that. Again, it can be a paragraph, it can be bulleted a bulleted list, whatever makes sense for you. And then we'd love to know your strengths and also what are some things your group could use help with. And like strengths in this case are like, what are things that y'all do really well and you don't really even have to at this point, like there's not a lot of discussion whenever you're getting that thing going. So say if you have a very large, your group may have a very large community network and are good at like getting in touch with people to organize a lot of folks to show up for, say, you want to do a Hill Day where folks go to your state legislator and talk to them about an important bill. Maybe your group is very, very good at that. That could be considered a strength. A thing your group could use help with. Maybe your group has a hard time getting new members who show up regularly. That could be something you could list. Basically, what are places where you feel like you have to work harder? Could be areas that your group needs help with versus what are the places where that work comes really easily to you? So who is in charge of your group? And are they self-advocates with developmental disabilities? Again, for the case of the STEP grant, we need the leaders of your group to be self-advocates of color, in addition to being self-advocates. And you can give us, when we're asking who's in charge of your group, we don't need you to say that they have formal diagnoses. We don't do that. We believe you if you tell us that you have a developmental disability. We're not going to ask you for formal diagnoses. And just give us a quick rundown of like, if your group has 3 officers who one is in, maybe one's in charge of financials, one is considered the president and one is considered the vice president. Sorry, I see the question. How are we defining self-advocates? So I'll give you my definition of self-advocate, and Eli, if you have any like additions, edits, subtractions, please feel free. Self-advocate in this case means like, are you a person with an intellectual or developmental disability who is working to advocate for your rights and also in this case support your fellow community members in speaking up for their own rights and their needs, if that makes sense. Eli, do you have any edits or additions on that? I know that was very simple.
And I would just say a self-advocate would be somebody who identifies as a part of the community that they're advocating for. And so in this case, an autistic somebody with IDD, and somebody who is not only a part of that community, but is being work in that community to make sure that people's needs or needs are getting met and rights aren't being taken away. And that doesn't have to be like, oh, you're doing everything, but it means like maybe you have a special interest in sexual health education and disability justice because nobody talks about how disabled people have sex. That's something that's accessible to disabled people if they're immobilized or seen as asexual. And so maybe that's something that you're passionate about. And so you want to make information and education available to people. And so you want to use this grant to do that. Maybe that's your focus of advocacy, but it doesn't have to be huge, but it does have to be relating to policy. So it has to be relating to the way. Wait, stop me if I'm wrong now, because like obviously self-advocate doesn't always have to be about policy, but for the context of these grants, it does, right? Like yes. I'm not. Right.
Yes.
So the definition is much larger than what we are focusing on in this case, but your advocacy in this regard should be focusing on policy, but it can be any kind of policy that's local to you. That's not, it could be like a national policy, it could be a local policy, a state policy, whatever the case may be. But we're focusing on self-advocates who are doing work around changing things for folks in their community.
Yes. So to give an example, building off of Eli's example, if we have a disabled self-advocate who's very passionate about sexual health education and they want to submit for this grant, then what they could do is they could submit for a project where they want to do education for their community about how people have the right to go to sexual health doctor's appointments and have a support worker there, and like how you would navigate that. Like that's kind of what we mean about like, because that gets into dealing with policy, because that is like, there are laws in that person's state about how you can and cannot like access support care when it comes to your medical care, and how that does still include things like getting a sexual wellness appointment with your doctor. And I see anonymous attendee has said to clarify political policy. And I believe I'm going to say yes, because when you say political policy, to me, that means something that is dealing with governmental policy. Actually, no, I'm going to say kind of. Because say you're at a university and you want to submit for a project that deals with your university's policies, that also counts. If you are yeah, let's go with like that kind of thing of like, if you policy in the sense of like, you are trying to create change within an existing structure. So when we're saying like local government, state government, federal government, but we are, I believe, still open to things like university groups that are looking to change the policies on their campus. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah, that sort of thing. Does that help?
Yeah, and then Jose asks, do projects need to attempt to change policy, or can it be broader, like educating on current policy, identifying needs for improvement, etc.? Yeah,
It
so
can act. Oh, sorry, go
absolutely,
ahead.
yeah. It can absolutely be about educating on current policy, which is why we want to have opportunities for easy read as well. So for example, maybe if your current policy is a little bit convoluted, it's really dense and hard to understand, maybe you want to focus on making an easy read version of the policy so that disabled self-advocates can understand what their rights actually are and how to access them. That is a project that we consider under this grant.
Yes, like it does, when we're talking about it needs to relate to policy, it does not mean that you have to be trying to change policy. It can be, like Eli said, about education and outreach, because there's a lot of policies that exist that people don't even know what their rights are under them. And so they're just not getting to use those rights. Okay, hang on. Does deconstructing the lack of informational access within local/national institutions count as a form of navigating policy? I'm not quite sure what you mean by deconstructing the lack of informational access. So if you mean something like Eli was talking about recently, of like creating easy read materials, breaking down what a like very difficultly written policy actually means, in a more like plain language format, that counts. If you mean like going to local or national institutions and telling them like, hey, you created this policy, but you haven't really done any work to make sure people understand what this policy means. Here are our recommendations for how you can like do outreach to the community and explain like, here's a policy we made. It does X, Y, and Z, which means you can do B, C, and D. Like, I think those things will all count. Eli?
Yeah, additionally, I was going to say, if what you mean is like deconstructing the lack of informational access as like maybe doing a webinar on how lack of informational access affects self-advocates, that I think could also be a project, because that's also dissemination of information, even if you're not creating an easy read or creating a toolkit or creating a little, 10-page document that breaks things down for your community. I think if you're applying for the grant to do something like a webinar or a Skillshare where you teach self-advocates about how lack of institutional access is a larger part of ableism and built into our structures, and how to combat it in very general ways. I think that could fall under this grant project very easily.
Yeah, I agree. I think work that counts, because like part of self-advocacy work and supporting self-advocates is sort of like providing information that encourages folks into action and into engaging with local, state, national governments, engaging with policy, and educating others definitely counts towards that. Pointing out the fact that there's a problem in the terms of accessibility, that counts. Like any projects under that umbrella, I think work.
I would also say that if we have misunderstood what you meant by deconstruction in that context of that question, feel free to re-ask it with a little bit more clarity or context left out.
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. Oh, great. Perfect. Happy it helped. All right, so I'm gonna move down to so this section is for collaborators. So like I said, if you are one organization out of 3 who are applying for this grant, and you're kind of acting as our primary contact, your other 2 collaborators, please put them here. So that way we know like who else is working on the project, how y'all like, and have contact information for them. So
I
these
also
are
wanna add, there's probably there's no limit to how many are in collaboration. Like if you want to collaborate with 5 groups, that's great. If you want to collaborate with 2 groups, that's great. But understand that it doesn't increase the grant size. So it's always going to be up to 5,000, and y'all will have to determine your budget together to determine what gets spent on what and who uses what as a collaboration.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for adding that. So now we're going to get into some optional questions. And you can see we start first with the optional questions for individuals, and then we'll move into, so if you're a group, you don't need to fill out the individual questions. Just like if you're an individual, you don't need to fill out the group questions. And I know the grant is a little repetitive. We're not trying to annoy you. It's just part of paperwork. So again, we ask you, are you over the age of 18, and remind you that whoever is applying for the grant needs to be 18 or older. We'd love to know your pronouns if you wish to share them. We want to know how you found out about the mini grant program, because that will help us. We want to keep doing this program in the future. And so we want to know where we're being successful in reaching out to people and getting them to apply. And now in this section, we want to make sure that like we're reaching as diverse a group of people as possible. We are particularly looking for people of color, people from religious minorities, people with intellectual disabilities, people with other disabilities in addition to autism, non-speaking people, LGBTQ plus people, and people from low-income backgrounds. As we've said, the STEP grant, you do need to be a person of color to apply. But these are other elements that we would love to know if you are comfortable with telling us. If you have any of these identities as a part of your own experience. And you'll just literally, some folks have highlighted these. Some folks relist them here, whatever makes sense to you. And then you'll see it repeats with our optional questions for groups. We still want to know how you heard about us, and we'd love to know about how your group, like who is a part of your group. And again, asking those same things of people of color, people from religious minorities, people with intellectual disabilities, with other disabilities, in addition to autism, non-speaking people, LGBTQ plus people, and people from low-income backgrounds. And again, this helps because we know historically, a lot of folks from these various communities don't get access to funding in the same way as folks who are part of the privileged groups. And we want to change that. we want to make sure that we are actively attempting to change that. So that's why we're asking that information of you. And now this is, oh, does led by need to be a majority of people? So no, for example, does the majority of leaders need to be LGBTQ plus to list that item? I'm going to say, well, here, if you have exactly, if you're a group and you have exactly one LGBT person in your entire organization, and your group really doesn't do anything relating to the LGBT community, and you just kind of happen to have this one member, I would go ahead and say maybe don't list that. If your group has, and here's the thing, like I said, the goal of this is to make sure that we're getting money into the hands of folks who don't usually get this funding. So it's why I'm hesitant to put like an exact number of people on things. Because also membership ebbs and flows. But yeah, I would say like if you have like a strong base of your members, like say, I don't know, you're a group of 30 people and 10 of them are members of the LGBT community, and all of you collectively try to make sure that you're incorporating stuff, like doing stuff relating to LGBT rights along with disability rights, then I could say like, yeah, it makes sense to list that. That is my personal take. Eli, what do you think?
Yeah, additionally, I would say like it becomes relevant if your project is related to that, right? So like to apply for either one of these grants, you do not have to be all of these things listed, all of these bullet
Yeah.
points, right? You do not have to be LGBTQ plus to apply for the STEP application or to apply for the Affiliates in Action mini grant application. Essentially, we're just trying to see if applicants are holding these identities. And it's easier, like if you're an individual and you hold these identities, to be like, yeah, check off, I have these or I don't have these. If it's a group, it's a little bit touch and go. But like Alex said, I wouldn't highlight or like say that the majority or like our group is LGBTQ people if you only have one or two members. And if your project proposal doesn't have really anything to do with LGBTQ plus policy work, then you maybe don't have to mention it at all. But if you are a group that has a large amount of LGBTQ plus people, and doesn't have to be majority, but if there's a substantial amount and what you're applying for is relevant, like you want to do some work around disability and LGBTQ plus policy in your area, and your project is specifically on that, then yeah, list it, mention it, highlight it for sure. Hope that answered.
Yeah, please let us know if that worked or if you have additional questions, please just ask them. So now this is the section where we start to get into your actual grant project. And we're going to start asking you questions about your project idea, starting at the first point where we just want to get you to explain, please tell us about your project in like 2 to 3 sentences. Just like a short description that is basically like, our group is doing X thing because of Y problem, and we hope to have Z outcome. If that like makes sense. Yeah. And then we also want to know, what you're doing, and then we also want to know why you want to do this. Like, why is this project important to you? And that's kind of a space where you can expand on, like, we're addressing like X problem because it impacts our community in P, Q, and R ways. And we don't like that. And you can be as detailed as you want. Again, there's no character limits. You can be as short as you want. We would like you to be truly specific. And we don't, excuse me, sorry, y'all. I personally don't feel like you need to be very formal in your language and applying. If you want to say, this is my personal thing of, if you want to tell me that like the bus system sucks in our city and doesn't have accessible stops, and that's how you want to write that in the grant, I'm not going to stop you as long as you elaborate on the fact of like, you can say like, this thing sucks. But then just please give us the explanation of it sucks because of A, B, and C. That is personally how I'm approaching this. Eli, feel free if you have a different perspective. But yeah, language wise,
Yeah.
just tell
Yeah,
us.
I don't think it's
Okay.
ideal to try and fight about semantics, especially when we're seeking input from folks, or like we're seeking applications so from folks with IDD, or folks who maybe are non-speaking, or folks who are outside of the US, so English may not be their first language. Excuse me, sorry. But yeah, so I would say formality, grammar is not a huge deal here. Don't like worry too much about that. If you'd like assistance with that, again, you can sign up for office hours through the Calendly link on the website with me. Because it is good practice to have for like grants that are not ours. Like if you need some help editing, or looking over it to kind of be in a more formal way because you want to practice, because you want to apply to other grants in the future, I'm happy to do that with someone or a group in my office hours. Feel free to sign up for that. I will ask, like, if that's your only reason for scheduling office hours, to like maybe give priority to the folks who actually have questions about the application. But if you have questions about your application and additionally want assistance with like formatting, so that you get that practice for applying for future grants, I'm happy to include that in our session if you sign up for office hours.
Thank you, Eli, because that is a good point of grant applications can be intimidating because the expectation to write in a certain kind of way. So if this gives you an opportunity to practice that, we're more than happy to give you that space. But again, you don't need to write in a particular way. We just are looking for the content of your answers to give us good details about what your project is, why you are doing it, and what you are hoping will happen. Which is why we get into the question of, if your project is completed, who will benefit? So this is the question of, we understand, like, you're not going to be able to tell us, like, Steve over in like X county is going to have a better time. That's not what we mean. In this case, we mean who will benefit. We really want you to think about, and we really love to hear about projects that are like thinking specifically like how we asked about those different identities above. We are hoping like that folks will think about their projects in terms of ways where it's going to focus not just on disability, but how disability interacts with other identities that often don't get access to services, don't get access to information, and create projects that include those groups in how the project is done, and will ultimately benefit like those communities. So like listing it in that kind of way of like, by improving transportation in our county, we are working with like multiple different groups to make sure that like it's going to help like people with disabilities. It will help these low-income neighborhoods that keep getting overlooked for additional bus stops. It will help like the communities of color that are experiencing higher levels of policing. That is kind of what we're looking for in terms of when we say who will benefit, is think big. Like, think big. Don't make it up, but do think big. Eli, I saw you lean forward. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure you had additional. So this is a space and where we ask, what other organizations or individuals are you working with on this project? And this is different than if you are applying with collaborators. When we say organization, when we're talking about other orgs or individuals you're working with that are different, how we're defining that. Collaborators are folks that you're going to be working with every step of the way. Y'all are working together with an equal level of like time and energy invested. This question is about folks who maybe you're only tapping in at certain times of the project. Like maybe there is, or like they're working on like, especially when we're coming to policy like policy change and stuff can sometimes feel like a wheel where we have multiple spokes in the wheel that are trying to get things done. Because like multiple different groups will benefit. So maybe you're working over here and it's led you to work together with this other organization that doesn't really do anything relating to disability, but they also share your goal. So there's going to be certain points in the project where you will kind of like pass the baton and they'll take on some parts of this project and you'll be doing like, you might take on these other things over here. That's what we're asking about on that section.
For an additional example, so specifically here, collaborators do mean somebody that you're co-applying with, right? So your collaborators are, if you are a group in a coalition with other groups and you are applying for this grant together, in the context of this application, the word collaborator refers to those individuals. This question is asking, like Alex said, about folks outside of those individuals. So say, for example, maybe you're a group that is trying to distribute PPE throughout your community to assist self-advocates with protection and, you know, COVID consciousness so that they don't get long COVID or possibly more disabling symptoms, right? So maybe you are coordinating with a local mask block group to help you do that distribution, but they're not interested in the other parts of your proposal or project. Maybe you have a larger project of what you're doing, like maybe you're creating a lending library of HEPA filters and passing out zine education about how COVID is affecting or transmitted through the air and how the symptoms can look like different symptoms can look like for different people. So like maybe you're doing a lot of different things and you're applying for this grant to help you do those lots of different things. And one of the aspects is distribution of PPE. And so maybe one of your connections outside of this application process is you have a friend in this mask block distribution group, and they help you every now and again when you've purchased masks, when you've purchased the COVID rapid tests or something, maybe they come and pick them up and they help you distribute them. And so that is a community connection that you utilize and have outside of this application process of this coalition that you are working together to get this project done. Does that make sense?
Thank you for adding that, Eli. Okay, we have a question of if I intend to work and coordinate with individuals in the near future regarding my grant project, how would I put that in the what other individuals am I working with on this project question? Do you have any clarifying questions? Okay. So I would just list them as kind of like how like Eli just explained of, so if there's folks that you expect that you will tap in, like work with over the course of this project, I would just name them as like, I'm going to be working with like X person and they'll be doing Y thing in this project. And like list that out that way. Yeah, that's honestly how I think of it. That makes sense, Eli? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if it's an individual, I would list it under this question versus a collaborator. So if you intend to work with an individual for the grant project, like if you as an individual are applying, not as a group, but you want to like work with another individual, I would list, are these the group questions or this is the whole, yeah. So I would list that here. I would list the individuals here versus them as a collaborator. I think when we say collaborators, we are thinking specifically of group. So if you are working with an individual, they would be listed here. Did that answer the question?
I think another way to think about it too is if another individual or group that you are working with could make a choice about how you spend this grant money, then that might be someone you consider a collaborator. Versus like, if you're just working, like, can they make a financial choice about the money that we give y'all? Then they might be considered a collaborator. If they don't have any say in like how you're going to spend the grant money, then I would say they're not a collaborator. They would go probably under here. And great, I'm glad that made sense.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then we also want to know who else is doing work on this subject in your area and what relationship you have with them. Because oftentimes this is a combination of we kind of want to prompt you to like check in your area because sometimes there can be folks who are doing work that you don't know about. And then we don't want folks to, we want to work easier, not harder. And if there's an opportunity for you to connect and collaborate with people who are already in this and combine your energy and your strength, then that's wonderful. And we really want to encourage it. We also recognize that sometimes there are folks doing work on the same thing that you care about, and maybe their values don't match yours. Or maybe they have a different goal or a different way of approaching the problem that you don't agree with. And that's okay. You can still tell us that. That's kind of the point is we want to know why you specifically are doing this work and like why you are applying for this grant, like in the environment that you are, like with other people still doing, like who else is doing work in your area and how they are doing the work. And do you work with them? Are they someone you don't want to work with? We just like to know. And then we also want to know, how are you building relationships with communities you are not a part of? And so what we mean in that sense is we're really looking, how I think of this question is we just as like we're self-advocacy based work. We want to know that like part of self-advocacy is the thing of like you are advocating for yourself and for a community that you are a part of. So when you're doing these kind of projects, we also want to make sure you're involving self-advocates from communities that you're also like communities that you are not a part of yourself. If you're doing work that's supposed to benefit them, like so like bring back one of Eli's earlier examples. If your project is going to benefit the LGBT community and your group is not part of the LGBT community, like you don't have any members or you as an individual are not part of it, how are you working with members of the LGBT community? And like, are they actively, I personally ideally like would like them to be collaborators. Like you have a collaborator on that level. If you're, or at least, and I recognize that doesn't always work out that way, but like, are they involved in the process? Are you actively, if they're doing work over here and you're doing work over here, but y'all have that common goal, that is what your project is centered around? How are you talking to them? How are you connecting with them to make sure that y'all get to work together versus you guessing what they might need and assuming from a place outside of the community, if that makes sense? And so we also want to know, what other work have you done in the past or currently that is related to this project? This is a question, and it doesn't have to be on the exact same scale. So if you're applying for this grant, so you can kind of level up and do something bigger than you've done before, that's totally okay. We want to see that. But we also want to see that you've practiced, that you've built skills. So if you want to do if you're applying for this grant, so you can do a series of webinars that's educating folks around a particular subject or group of subjects, then we'd love to know like what previous webinars have you done? What kind of in-person trainings have you done? So that we see that y'all are experienced with doing community education. And this grant and this project was just about making that maybe bigger or making it easier. So you also don't have to, we're not looking for like an endless series of growth kind of thing. If you are looking to do something bigger and the only thing that's been holding you back is getting money, then we are happy to have your application and like potentially be able to give you like remove that barrier to getting that project done. But if you're just looking to do like make it easier on yourselves to do the kind of work that you've been doing by applying for funding, then we're also here for that. And then we also want to know what experience do you have with self-advocacy work? Again, like we've mentioned throughout this, that includes basically any work that's about supporting self-advocates, and that includes yourself as self-advocate in knowing your rights, being able to speak out for your needs, and support yourself in getting your needs met. And then we also want to know what challenges do you anticipate in achieving your goal? And so these are things of, this can be anything from, we know there's a group of people over here who are advocating for the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. So we know that we're going to have to deal with the stuff they're saying and try and get ahead of them. So we meet people before they hear from this other group, to we know a legislator doesn't like our stuff, to it costs a lot of time and energy to do research for this Easy Read project. So it might take us, we're hoping it will only take us 6 months, but it might actually take us 8, that kind of thing. That's what we're looking for in terms of challenges. And also, let me check, because I know, okay, we're not too, I realize we're almost at the hour, and y'all have been lovely to take this time with us. So this is a space where we want to just checklist of which communities will your project benefit? As I mentioned before, that's something that we're very interested in, not just in having, we want to see that your project is intersectional in the sense of it's helping groups with multiple different identities who often don't get acknowledged, don't get supported, and don't get their rights respected or their needs met. And then we want to know how. And again, we're not expecting anybody to be able to predict the future or psychic in knowing exactly the outcome, but we want to know what you are hoping the outcome will be. So how do you hope this work will benefit the communities you've selected? And then again, as we mentioned, we want to know, how are you engaging these communities as active participants in this project? How are folks who are part of these communities actually getting to be part of your planning process, making up the goals for this project, thinking about how you reach those goals. And we want to make sure that that those folks are being part of the work that's supposed to benefit them. And then that gets us into Smarty goal section. So we have a worksheet example of it, as well as, if you're unfamiliar with Smarty goals, you can review our guide here. I'm going to click the link so you can see it. It opens into a PDF that is one of our, I believe this is one of our PADS resources. And it will walk you through how, what a Smarty goal is. Right now, this is an older version, so it only covers to the T, which means it covers specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. The I and the E are inclusive and equitable. And inclusive and equitable get to the questions that I was just talking about how are you engaging these communities? And how does your work benefit those communities? That's what we're looking for there. And you can use the Management Center worksheet as a resource on that. But to go through Smarties is, we want to know that your goal is specific. So what do you want your project to do? Measurable. How will you know you're making progress with your goal? So you can have measurable, I think of by 3 months into our project, we will achieve X and Y. By 6 months, we'll have done Z. 8 months we'll have done Q and R. That gives you goalposts that take something that can be intimidating and vague and make it easier to put your hands around and get stuff done. Achievable asks the question of, what makes you feel like this project is something that you can actually do? So this is a place where you can talk about we've done X, Y, and Z before. And so we feel that gives us the skills to do P, Q, and R. And also this is a place too where we want to know, like, do you know the stuff that you need? What resources do you need to get this done? You also want to know, are your steps relevant? Are all the steps in your plan going to bring you closer to it? Because it can be very, especially in movement work, I think we can get tempted because we have so many things that we want to achieve to kind of try and like stick on something that like is kind of related to our goal, but isn't really. And that can take away time and resources from our main goal. And so it's okay to like have things be very trimmed down, like, no, we're just gonna focus on this thing, and that's the goal of this project. That's how we're gonna get it done. That's what we're looking for there. And time bound is, when do you want your project to be completed? So we've mentioned we will be providing the funding. Half the money will be given to grantees in January of 2025. The other half will come in June. And we will have 4 check-ins throughout 2025, with the last check-in being in December. We recognize that folks' projects may actually last longer than the year, but the time frame of the grants will only be for 2025. But in this time-bound sense, if you are certain that your project's going to last longer than a year, you can tell us that. If you think a project might take less than a year, you can also tell us that. Then we get into inclusive, which again is how are marginalized people a part of the planning and decision-making process in your project. And equitable, which is how does your project work to remove barriers for everyone? Okay. Now we get into like for collaborators. So this is the space where if you have collaborators, we'd love to know what their roles are in your project. What parts are they doing? And who's got what tasks? And if there's different points in the project where someone will be kind of on lead, then you can tell us that as well. And we're getting into financials. So I'm going to pass that to Eli, because true facts, I'm not good at financials.
I was also just going to say really quickly about the collaboration list.
Yes.
I want to be really clear that only one group needs to apply. So if you are collaborating with 2 other groups, those 2 groups should not also be submitting application forms.
Yeah.
Y'all should be hopefully sitting down together to do your application process, or maybe y'all don't have capacity to do that. Maybe one main person from the first group is y'all's representative and is doing it. But as long as that person has talked with the other groups and knows what their roles are, and like tells you that like, okay, maybe this group's job is to secure the printing of the materials and set up the Zoom for the webinar or whatever the case may be, you know that as the person applying, because you've talked it out with your group, you have collaborated with these groups and talked about the project before proposing it, and you can list it there. Or if you're sitting down together, your groups are filling this out together, then they can each, at this point, write their information in what their roles are in this space. There's a question in the chat. Would we only need one application if it's a joint project by multiple groups? Correct. That is exactly what I was just emphasizing. Perfect. Thank you for your well-timed question. One application for the collaboration.
Yes, please do not, as we said about there being no limit and no minimum on the answers. We don't want to make more work for you than necessary. Please sit down with your collaborators, like Eli said, talk about who's got each piece of the project. So you all know and put that into the application, but you submit one application. Like, please don't do multiple ones.
And then for the financial part, essentially, we would like you to provide a budget for how to use the amount you're requesting. Again, we're only awarding up to 5,000, but you can request less than that. I don't know why you would, but maybe your project is really simple and you've done the research and you're like, I only need $1,500. I'm good. And if that's the case, that's the case. But we would still need you to break down exactly how you're spending at 1,500. So we would want to see line item by line item where you estimate that you're putting the money. Now, again, we don't expect you to be psychic and fully have exact dollar amounts, cents, like dollars and cent amounts for every possible expense, but we do expect you to have a good concept of what it is that you need and do a little bit of research. So for example, yeah, go ahead back. Yeah. So for example, here on our sample project budget for this made up project that we are pretending to apply for the application, the grant application with, here we have determined that for admin costs, we need to print about $200 worth of materials. That estimation would come from maybe calling a FedEx and Kinko's near you and seeing how much per page costs for your printing, if it's color, if it's black and white, estimating how many pages you think you'll need to print, and then rounding that to maybe a slightly higher number and putting that number into the budget. So for example, over here we have a MailChimp subscription. So for the year, paying for a professional MailChimp is going to cost this amount. And that is something that they want to spend this money on. Maybe at the webinars or like at their little events that they're passing out these printed materials that they've informed everybody to come attend through their MailChimp newsletter. Maybe they need catering. So they've determined, okay, roughly every time we have an event, spend $100 on snacks and drinks. We're going to have 4 events this year. So let's say 450, so like basically we are expecting that you are looking into the things that you're going to want to do, or things that you're going to need for this project, doing a little bit of research about how much they cost, or a little bit of estimation around how much you expect to spend. And again, it's okay. You don't have to have it specifically. Like for the meals, you don't have to know that every single meal is going to cost this exact amount, but at least give yourself a generous like tub. Like say, if you're not specifically sure about how much something is going to cost, say like round it to 500 maybe, and then be very intentional about keeping it in that budget that you've given yourself when you are receiving the funds and using them. Does that make sense? Okay, and so for this, I think what we had the project was is that they were putting on like a disability fair where like folks could come and have vendors and like do fun things together, but with a focus on like education and putting out information about the self-advocate community in the area. And so there is a venue cost for renting the park. There is a ride rental cost to rent a ride for folks to come and have a good time. And then there are stipends for the volunteers who are running the action.
Sorry, Eli, I realized this is the one that you mentioned.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's my fault. I'm so sorry.
You're so fun. I was like, I don't remember us doing the fair one. I think
That's why I'll fix that later.
Okay, so this is something completely separate, but in an understanding way, similarly, you're going to budget or like estimate your costs. But here was this for a hill day, I think? Oh no, this was for canvassing. Yeah, so
yes,
for a project might say like, we want to canvass our local neighborhood with some informational posters about disability rights. Maybe a bill is coming out and we want people to go to the Capitol and make some comments or call their representatives. So we're gonna paste around our neighborhood with the information so that lots of different people can see it and access it. So promotional materials, printing and social media would be about $300. So like they'd have to print the wheat-based posters, they'd have to create the graphics and put them out on social media. Oh yeah, get on the ballot, exactly, yeah, for voting. And so then the venue rental to host an area for folks to come to do the voting. That also probably has a whole lot of, like, this is just the cost, but understand that like, if you are doing something like this, where you're bringing somebody to an area to vote on something, you would have to work with your local government to get a space registered as an authentic voting venue. So this project is obviously going to take a little bit more intensive work outside of just this budget. So renting the venue is going to cost $1,500. Having food available for the voters is going to be a lot because you're expecting a lot of turnout. Then offering people transportation stipends, and that's in the form of rideshare gift cards. And then giving people who do the canvassing stipends for assisting you with the canvassing. like $50 gift cards for 50 volunteers is 2,500. Feeding your canvassers is going to cost a lot as well. And so like, for example, this amount is actually going to be more than what we allow, right? So the total expenses is 7,500. And that's fine. But this is going to show that you know what you need, and that you're asking for the most because you actually need more. But you plan to get the other 2,500 from a separate grant or from a separate pool somewhere else. So you can apply for this grant with a project that needs more than what the grant can offer you, as long as you are understanding it's your duty as the person applying to secure those other funds from a separate source if your project does need more than 5,000. Does that make sense? Are there any
Yes,
questions
and
about the budget?
I want to add onto Eli of like if you do have that situation where you're going to need $7,500, let's say, just include that in your answers of like you can go back into the like you can either include it with the attachment of your budget, or you can include it under Smarty goals with achievable and say like we know our project is going to cost like $7,500. And so that's why we're asking y'all for the full amount of 5,000. And we're planning to get the remaining $2,500 by doing X, Y, and Z. And that just lets us know that you're thinking about it and like that you're really considering, like Eli said, all the stuff that needs to go into your project. And I also really want to emphasize and like second Eli on please round up on the costs for stuff. Look for the most expensive option. Not because we want you to do the most expensive option, but just because life happens and prices for things change. And it's much easier to handle like, oh, we actually set aside too much money for this thing and we didn't actually need that much. That's a beautiful problem to have, because then you can use that money for some other part of your project versus, oh no, we were $200 under what we needed. And now we have to take money from somewhere else. So please round up. I am going to roll us to the very bottom of this because this is all we have left on the application. And I know we only went through the STEP grant application today, but the STEP grant and the affiliate application are extremely similar. The differences are the affiliate application does not have anything for individuals because you can only apply if you're an affiliate group. And basically just that difference and the fact that the STEP grant is specifically for self-advocates of color. So the commitments are basically, we want you to read through these and check them off to let us know that you read them. If your project is chosen for the grant, then we'll need you to attend an online training and orientation at the start of the grant. Provide us quarterly budget updates regarding how the money is being used and how much has been spent. We're not expecting you to hold on to every receipt for everything that you buy. We just want to know like an update of your budget to see like how things are going so far and how much you've spent. Along with that quarterly budget update, we want to update on the progress that has been made towards your project, any like new challenges that have come up. That's also a place where you can ask us for resources in terms of like, hey, do you know of anybody who has been doing work relating to like this thing? Because we're having a little bit of a hard time. And if ASN does know somebody who might be able to talk to y'all, we'll try and make that connection for you. So that's what the quarterly, like those quarterly updates will happen in quarterly meetings. And then at the end of your grant period, like at the end of the grant project in December, we'd love to have y'all do a statement or presentation about your project, the successes you had, the challenges you faced. And that presentation is not going to have to be like a super long, like fancy thesis kind of thing. It can be a PowerPoint, it can be a short video. We'll work with you on that, but we do want you to be able to tell us like, here's our journey. Here's what happened when trying to do this project. We also want, please, we need you to be able to inform us on how you can receive your grant funding in a way that won't disrupt any of your benefits. We know that some folks are on benefits and cannot directly receive a chunk of $5,000 without that causing problems for them. So we will offer guidance on who to speak to in regards to making sure that your benefits are protected, who can give you that like advice. But we do need you to be able to talk to us about that. So we don't want to cause anyone financial problems. And then also we ask that you agree to fulfill your project to the best of your ability. We know we all are human beings. We have limited power. So this is basically a thing of agree to try your best. Please agree to try your best. And that's the end of this application.
And like Alex said, this application is almost identical for the Affiliates in Action application. The difference being that if you are applying to the STEP grant as an individual, you must be a person of color. If you're applying to the STEP grant as a group, you must be a majority led by people of color, and your group should have at least 50% or more folks of color in it. For the affiliate, if you do not, like if the STEP grant doesn't apply to you, if you're not an individual of color and you're not a group and you're like, well, what can I do? Affiliates in Action group, the Affiliates in Action grant, even though it is a group focused grant, we would encourage you to get involved with a local organization or like start a group of your own of self-advocates and apply, maybe not this year because you do have to be functioning for 1 year as an affiliate. Well, you have to be functioning 1 year as a group, not as an affiliate. So maybe you're already running a group and you've been running for like 2 or 3 years and you want to apply to be an affiliate, then you could still apply this year. You would first apply to be an affiliate first. You would email Alex to do that. And then once you have become an affiliate, you could apply for this grant. And again, this grant does not close until the end of June. So there is time for you to do that if that applies to you. And if you're an individual and you are not a part of any groups that have been going on for a year or longer, and you would like to apply for the Affiliate in Action grant, unfortunately, you would have to do that next year because you would need to become involved with a group that has been at least going on for a year before applying. Does that make sense? Are there any questions that maybe we missed or you are thinking of that we haven't touched on?
And when it comes to applying to be an affiliate, like Eli said, please email me. If you don't have a group yet, but you want to start one, you can also still email me and I will send you the resources that we give to folks who are interested in starting a group. To help you out with that. Also, I will be honest with you, if your group has been active for 11 months, I'm not going to say don't apply to become an affiliate. If you've been active for nearly a year, we'll give some grace there. You can still apply.
Right. Additionally, if you're not in a group, like if you're not in an affiliate group and you're an individual, and you're in a space or you're in a location where one of our affiliate groups exists, check out our website, see what affiliate groups are in your area, see if you can join them, and then encourage them. Like if you have a project idea, be like, hey, there's this amazing grant that ASAN is doing, and I think this would help our community. Can I be a part of your group and can we do this together? So
Yeah.
try that option too if you are not currently in a group and would like to make use of these groups.
And you can find, oh, sorry, go.
I was just looking at the chat, but it was you. You sent your email. Good.
Yeah. If you want to apply to, if you want to look at our affiliate page and see who is a current affiliate of ASAN, you go up to under Get Involved, under the drop-down menu, Affiliate Groups, you click it. There we go. And then you can see the information about how to become an affiliate, including my email address, where you can email me. And then you can scroll down and see our list of affiliate groups and their contact information. You can see we have affiliates in the United States, but we also have affiliates in Australia, Canada, and Mexico, and Portugal. And yes, you will have access, detailed doc, hang on. I'm not sure
I
if you
think the
mean the
document you're
application.
referring to is is the application form.
Okay, yes.
And so I'm gonna go ahead and let Alex show you how to access the application form once more.
Yes, so please go to, I'm going to copy this and drop it into the chat. So you'll go to autisticadvocacy.org, and I'll also include the link directly to it. On our main page, look for the Teighlor McGee Grassroots mini grants. Click that, and then we'll scroll down and you'll get to these two columns: affiliates in action and STEP, self-advocates transforming equitable policy. Scroll down, and if you want the affiliates grant, you'll click the download affiliates in action application. If you want the STEP grant, you'll click the download STEP application. And either of these buttons, when you click them, that will download the Word document for the application. If you yourself, like me, do not have Word on your computer, you can open Google and just open your Google Drive and take the file and put it in your Google Drive, and it will open it as a Google. If you have any issues accessing these applications, please email Eli or I, and we will help to make sure that you can get the application. I also want to again highlight Eli has opened office hours where they will meet with you about any questions you might have about the application, and you can see them. You can look at the office hours and schedule yourself a time by clicking this link. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. We will have this session has been recorded. It will be posted to our YouTube within a week. And the document we went through is the application itself. It is on our website where I just showed y'all. Excuse me. We will also have a mock application that will be filled out by a fake affiliate. You can see that kind of like hiding in the corner up here in my tabs. We will have that posted by the end of the week, so you can see a fake application that someone has made and how someone, being us in this case, and like how those answers were written. Just to provide you additional support if you like having an example. But yeah, are there any other questions today? I know we've kept you a bit over, and I appreciate everyone's patience.
I think we're good to close it if there are no more questions.
Right? I'm gonna stop sharing. Thank y'all again for joining us today. Hope y'all have a good rest of your days, and we look forward to seeing your applications. Take care.